Hello! If you've been watching some of my recent videos, you'll know that I bought this huge set of Holbein watercolors. 108 paints, which is their entire range, or at least it was, and I ended up swatching all 108 paints into this enormous palette that's also by Holbein, and that was a lot of fun to do, and I just think it looks fantastic, so I'm really happy with this. But we're not done yet, because of course Holbein has only gone and released some other paints, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. I have 4 little sets of Holbein Granulating Colours. They come in a set of 6 each, and there are 24 in total. I think you can buy this as a 24 set in one box, but we ended up just getting these little ones. By we, I mean that Nick may have bought me these. He's so sweet. Thank you, Nico, because I just had to have them. Oh, I have been so naughty lately when it has come to buying paints. Oh my gosh. And because I've run out of room in that other palette, I am going to put these ones in their own dedicated palette. Also by Holbein, this one. I'm going to open up everything on camera. I'll squeeze out the colours, we'll swatch them, see what they look like, and I might even get to do some painting. So let's get into it! Here's a look at everything I'll be using today. 4 boxes with 6 different granulating colours each, and the Holbein watercolour palette with 24 wells. I'll start off with the palette. I did show this in my haul video, but I might as well show it in this one too, just in case you didn't see it. This is an interesting one that I had never seen before. It comes with 26 small pans and 4 large pans, and they're interchangeable, so you can clip them out, which is really fantastic. If you don't get your paint order right in the first place, you can move them around, or you can mix and match, and have some large and some small, and you can buy separate ones to go in, so you can have entirely large pans if you wanted to. If you're in Australia, the cheapest place to buy these things is from the art shop. This is where I got everything. I mean, this palette still cost $56, but I saw it for $70 somewhere else, so I guess I got the best price, at least from Australia. I'm sure these are cheaper in Japan. It's made entirely of plastic, but it's very solid and sturdy. It's really high quality, and because you can remove the pans, it's very versatile as well. So you can fit either 24 of these skinny pans or 12 of the bigger pans. I thought this would be ideal for putting the granulating paints in, but I kind of want more of these now for other paint. If I ever see one on a good sale, I would definitely get another. But let's move on to the main stars of the show, these granulating watercolors. Now I have them as 4 sets of 6, but you can get them as a full set of 24, with all of the same colours. The smaller sets are so cute though, they have wonderful paintings on the boxes, and I think these worked out slightly cheaper than the full box set, I don't know why. This first one are the bird colours, and all of the paints have really fun names and themed ones. You'll get this in the 24 set too, I checked. They are definitely all the same, and they are 5mm tubes. You can also get these as 15mm tubes, but they're pretty expensive, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like them all. With granulating colours, 5mm is usually enough. And if for some reason I run out of a colour, I can always buy a bigger tube at a later time. They have very attractive packaging. And once again, these were purchased from the art shop. I'll link them in the description below for Australians, and I think they post to New Zealand as well. This next box is the Moon set, all with lunar related names. And I do have to admit that the names and the little swatches on the cardboard here really pulled me in. They just look so intriguing. Oh, they were so hard to get open on camera, of course, but once I got into them, or ripped into them, now we can see the tubes as well, and they look the same as the other Holbein paints that I have in my enormous collection. The pigment numbers are on the tubes as well. I will find that in a little while. Here's the next set, which is Flower, and I'm going to say that this picture is somewhat misleading. The yellow on the front is different to the yellow in here, which is actually a green, so it's definitely not the best to judge these little colour swatches. Some of them aren't very accurate, so that's something to bear in mind. I'll be doing full swatches of these so you see what the actual colours look like, but it's a nice looking set otherwise. And lucky last are the landscape colours. And you'd think from this picture that the set would be quite limited, but actually it's got quite a lot of bright colours in here, and I think of all of the sets, this one surprised me the most. Is it a good or bad surprise? We'll find that out too soon. I might as well open these too since I've done all the rest of them. Those tabs are so frustrating, but I think I got this one open slightly more easily than some of the other boxes. Here they all are, and all 24 colours are different from each other. There are no repeats, which is really fantastic. I'll just shuffle all the boxes together so you can see the tubes, and I was thinking to myself, how am I going to organise these so that they are logical? Well, for the purposes of these videos, I've decided to keep them in their groups because it's just easy for me to manage them and to keep track of which colours are which. I can always pull those pans out and move them around at a later time if I want them to go by colour order, so I'm just going by set order here today. Bird and flower up the top, landscape and moon down the bottom. I wrote that down just so I wouldn't forget it, and I didn't actually label the pans in any way here, so I'm really hoping I don't make a mess of this in the future. But so far so good, I'm keeping track of which is which, so I just started squeezing a blob of paint into each little pan here. I'm not using a lot of paint because I do want some of that pan to be used to dilute the paints out a bit in water. As I've learned from experience and many viewer comments, these granulating paints do benefit from being watered down significantly so that the granulation effect can occur. Granulation can be the texture of the paint or the granules that are left on the paper, or it can be the splitting out of colours as well. And overall this set has kind of a mixed bag of everything really. I've got a lovely cat scratch on my hand there too, doll. Thanks, Trixie. I deliberately didn't watch anyone else's videos on the granulating colours, although I had heard that some are better than others, but I wanted to go into this with an open mind. And here's my swatch book all ready to go. I've written in the names and the pigment numbers. You can see there are loads of pigments in these, and that's because they are mixed ones. And I did find them on the tube. They're very tiny, so this took me ages to find them all and write them down. That was better done off camera. And my Holbein swatch stamp is far too small for these. I wanted bigger ones so that we can really see the effects of them. I'm adding water to the paper first, and then trying to paint on the paint as juicily as possible to try and achieve as much granulating effect as I can. I've decided I'm far too lazy to read out all of those pigment numbers. Hopefully you can see them well here, along with all of their names. And with granulating paints, you generally have to wait for them to dry on the paper before you can see the full granulation effect, but you can probably watch them changing as they're just sitting on the paper in the water, and some of them definitely had a noticeable granulation and or a colour split. There were a few that were maybe a bit too opaque and I didn't see much granulation in them, but Burke's Parrot Pink and Peafell Green are really showing that colour split in the top row. Now, if I'm going to be brutally honest, the flower set feels like the weakest of all of the sets, and that's because the colours are quite low tinting, especially Mimosa Yellow, which I think at this point is my least favourite of the colours. The Jade Vine Blue is very pretty, and I do like Cherry Blossom Pink, although that one wasn't really granulating, it's just a nice pretty pink colour. I mean, the colours are nice, but they just don't feel as punchy as a group as some of the other sets. Now, the landscape ones are super bright by comparison. This Pampas Grass Yellow really surprised me, and that was the yellow colour I was expecting to see in the flower set, so I don't know. All of the colours in this one, especially Ocean Blue, are absolutely beautiful. I think Ocean Blue may be one of my all-time favourite colours. You can see the green already starting to come out of it. Nightfall Indigo is a darker blue, maybe not quite so colour changing though, but overall this is a really good set and I loved this immediately. Now, I will point out that granulating paints are generally made from cobalts and other earthy pigments, so they may not always be as bright as some of the more synthetic kind of paints. So I did expect these to be somewhat lower tinting, and you can definitely see that in some of the colours, but other ones are surprisingly vibrant, and there are some really nice ones in the Moon set as well. I really love that Earthshine Violet. Even in the watercolour pan, I can see that one splitting out into purples and pinks, so that's really nice. And I'll just finish up with this last little swatch here. I waited for them to dry, and then here they all are once they're completely dry on the paper. So I'll just lift them up and you can see the granulation coming out in a lot of the paints. I love Burke's Parrot Pink. That's a pink and orange colour. It's so pretty. The Peafowl Green really stands out to me. Flamingo Orange and Bush Warbler Green seem to be just one kind of colour. Eurasian Rose Grey is changing, and the blue grey has quite a lot of granulation in it as well. The flower ones, you can see what I mean, that they just seem to be a bit weaker, although Trumpet Vine Red has a colour change. Cherry Blossom Pink, now I'm seeing it there, is quite granulating, but I couldn't see it in some of my other paintings. Mimosa Yellow is just blur, although I've used it again since and I'm maybe liking it a bit more than my first impressions. I like the other three colours, but these are not really colour changing as well, except maybe the Clematis Violet. This is of course very much personal preference. This is just my own opinion, and you don't have to agree with that, that's fine, but I do love that grass yellow. The yellows in the Schminke granulating sets were so disappointing, so I'm really happy to see a nice bright one. Wonder Forest Green is super pretty as well, and Ocean Blue, oh that's such a gorgeous one with that green inside of the blue. It's an interesting range of colours in the landscape set, and no browns or blacks, which I thought was kind of weird for landscape. But there we go, I like that Daybreak Orange too, that's a super bright one. And I like Twilight Purple and Nightfall Indigo. I like all of those ones that I can't pick. Now, the last set, the Moon, Lunar Eclipse Red has some yellow showing through. Full Moon Yellow is okay, not that exciting, but I do love Earthshine Violet, that's so beautiful. Hazy Moon Yellow is quite dull, but I do like that you can actually see some of the yellow showing through. And next to it is that really gorgeous Moonlit Night Blue. Oh, that one's so pretty. And I also really love the Rainy Night Moon Black. That might be the most granulating of all of the colours. I'd love to know your thoughts on which ones you think are the prettiest. I picked 5 which stood out to me immediately, and this is my little swatch of them. Burke's Parrot Pink, Pampas Grass Yellow, Ocean Blue, Earthshine Violet, and Moonlit Night Blue. I'd say the pink, yellow, and blue are my top 3, and if I absolutely had to pick just one colour, it's a real toss-up between the pink and the ocean blue. I think the ocean blue is going to win out just a little bit more because it is such a vibrant colour and I have just fallen in love with it completely. But if you wanted to try one or two, Burke's Parrot Pink and Ocean Blue are my top 2 picks. I might end up getting those 2 as 15mm tubes, but let's not get ahead of myself too much. I have to do some paintings as well, and I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do yet, but I had these offcuts of cotton paper, and I was thinking that I really wanted to just kind of play around with the paints some more and swatch them again out of constrained boxes and just go on the paper mixing them together. So I'm actually going to cut this paper up into 4 mostly equal pieces and then start off with some interesting swatches on here. Inspired by YouTuber Christy Rice at Paint Crush, she always does some really interesting loose swatching, and I thought I'd have a go at that. They will be turning into paintings as well though, and I'm just going through picking out a couple of brushes which looked interesting to do my paints and swatching with. I'm using the Lindsay Wyrich brushes, which I got a couple of years ago. Her YouTube channel is The Frugal Crafter. I've got my paints all ready to go, they've dried in the palette since I poured them, and now it's time to get painting. I thought I would start out with a really loose and relaxed style and just see where it led me. I painted a bit of water on the paper and then the rest of it is just on dry paper. Just throwing these colours around willy-nilly, letting them mix in with each other and trying to exploit their granulating effects as much as possible. I've learned from experience and from people's advice that adding too much paint too thickly will lose that granulating effect quite quickly, and I am layering in a few places, but I was trying to still keep it very, very wet with a lot of water on my brush and in the paints there. This first page is from the Bird set. Burke's Parrot Pink is definitely the standout colour for me, and I'll show you more once they've fully dried. I'm just going to go on to the next one here. This is the Floral set, and it's the set that I struggled with the most. Now, you would expect floral colours to be a bit brighter than the colours that are in this particular set, so this one I felt was the most disappointing of them. And sorry, that's gone out of focus, it should hopefully come back a bit later. But the first 3 colours in the set are just a bit weak, although the blues and purples do pull it back a bit, and I like those ones together. I just wasn't as enamoured with this set as some of the others, but I was able able to get some interesting mixes out of it, and I just think I need more time with that set to get used to it. Now I'm moving on to what ends up being my favourite one, the landscape set. I thought this was going to be far more muted than it was, and this is kind of the opposite to the floral set. It's really bright and bold. I love bright colours, so I naturally gravitated towards this one. It was a pleasant surprise, and the granulation in some of these colours is really cool. The standout colour is the ocean blue, but that yellow comes in at a close second just because it is so unexpectedly bright for a granulating yellow. And last up is the moon set, and overall as a set, the colours in here tend to be darker and more muted, with some of these qualifying as landscape as well, in my opinion. I guess they're a lunar landscape, or other planets out in the solar system. This may well be the most limited palette in the four of them in terms of colour range. I had fun swatching them like this. Let's take a look at them now they're dry, and you can see all these amazing patterns and granulating textures in the paints. And overall, I think Holbein has done pretty well with the granulating colours. They have some really interesting properties, especially the colour shifting ones, and you can probably see how interesting they are with that large amount of water just spreading them out onto the paper. I like the bird colour palette, although this could also have easily qualified as the floral set, because it really does make me think of tropical flowers. Moving to the actual floral set, and yeah, I'm just not enamoured by this one. It doesn't speak flower to me, although I like that blue in the middle there, but I don't know what I would consider this one to be. Let me know in the comments what you think. Despite my whinging, I do like the granulating properties in some of these paints, and they are interesting colours. It's just that, as a set on its own, I feel it's a bit weak. Is that a fair critique to make? I think it is. And I guess I could also apply this to the landscape set. It's not super landscapey, at least what I tend to think of as landscape, but I absolutely adore it anyway. The colours in this set are really beautiful, and I think if you were to buy one set, this might be the most versatile of all of them, because that dark red can be mixed in with some of the other colours to get earthy tones. It's a really pretty set, and it is closest to a primary palette, so it has the most potential for versatility. And I'll move on to the last one, the moon set. I think this one has some really pretty dark tones in it. This set would probably be good for monochromatic paintings. That granulation in the black is absolutely insane, and I'd say that one is the grainiest of all of the paints, but there's some really interesting shades in there, colours that would be good for background washes especially. I was going to do separate paintings, but I decided to use my swatch sheets here and do some illustrations over the top of them, because the swatches on their own were kind of boring, and I was just looking at them going, I don't know what to do with these. I didn't want to put them in my painting folder with my finished paintings, so I thought I would utilise them as colour backgrounds and paint over the top of them with more of the granulating paints and see what happens. It's when I start layering paints that they tend to lose their granulating properties a bit, but I was trying to paint in translucent layers so you can still see some of the background showing through underneath, and all of my paintings today ended up being quite abstract, which I really like. This is obviously the bird set that I'm painting with now. But despite their mixed reviews online, I honestly had a lot of fun with these paints. They were really nice to use, and I really enjoyed the granulating properties in most of the paints. There were a few which weren't as good as the others, but overall I think it's a pretty strong set of 24 colours. In my video here, I was testing out each set of 6 to see how much I could get out of them, but if you combine them all together, it just makes a super set. Now, I will be showing the pictures at the end. I just decided to do all of the paintings and then show you all of the finished pieces at the end. Now, this is the floral set, the one that I wasn't so keen on. But actually, I really like how this particular painting turned out, and I was just using a waterproof black pen to go around all of my pencil lines, because I wanted these to be somewhat illustrative, and I wanted them to stand out from those very colourful backgrounds. Normally, if I painted in a background like this, I would go over the top with opaque paints, but I really love how the background is showing through these transparent watercolours, and once I got the hang of the florals, they did work a bit better for me, although they are still more muted than I would like. I think if that parrot pink was in the set, then it would be amazing. So that's why I would lean to getting all 24 colours, so that you can have that range of colours from other sets mixing in together and creating the effects that you want, plus a white pen here to add in some lovely highlights. Or maybe you've watched my video and it's given you an idea as to which are your favourite colours, and you can go out and buy just those individual ones without having to buy all 24 colours. You could just get a handful of tubes in your favourite colours from all of the different sets. And as I mentioned before, if I was to get just one set, I would get the landscape one, because this one just feels the most versatile to me. And I just really love all of those pretty colours. This ended up being my favourite picture of the day, that's for sure. I was using references from Pixabay, which is a royalty-free site, so you can use the pictures and not worry about copyright issues. This is not an original design by me, but I did change it up a bit from the original picture. And then I'm just adding in bolder colours here to really make the hills stand out from each other, kind of matching them with the background in this respect, because I didn't want too many colours clashing together. Adding in the thicker paint, especially with the red, did lose some of the granulation, but I don't mind that. It was still showing through quite well enough, and even the yellow is quite granulating, even though yellow is normally not a granulating colour. But whatever mix they've made is a real winner in my book. I also added highlights to this one, but I may have forgotten to film that little bit. You'll see it in the end picture. A while ago, I reviewed the Kuretake granulating paints, the first set of them. I know there's a second set coming out. I didn't enjoy those ones as much. I do need to revisit them, but I definitely have enjoyed using the Holbein paints more than I did with the Kuretake ones. I also have all of the Schmincke granulating paints, and maybe in the future I could do a video comparing the two brands. That would be really interesting. Maybe I'll throw in the Kuretakes as well. So this is kind of an alien moonscape, because I really wasn't sure what to do with these paints, especially with the rather awkward background that I'd put in on this particular one. The colours were too regimented, but I ended up with something that I quite like. A very interesting sky with a hill in the front and a sun and a moon, I think they're meant to be. I don't even know what this is. It kind of looks like a face. But anyway, I think I went a bit overboard with this particular painting and added too many layers. It's lost some of the granulation, although you can see it a bit in the background. And then I just drew some wavy lines around them to make them extra alien-y, and put in some regular earth-looking trees just to give it a more interesting foreground and balance everything out. I initially thought this was going to be a disaster, but I'm actually really happy with how this one came out in the end. It was a fun one to paint. And I'm really glad I did the rest of the paintings on top of the swatches. I think I achieved some really interesting effects doing this, and I like how all of the artworks turned out. I kept going on about that Burke's Parrot Pink. I can't get enough of that colour. I think I'd like to do a bigger painting in a separate video using all of the granulating colours together in this set, because then I could probably get some more interesting effects mixing in the different sets together. But the flowers came out pretty well. I love how transparent they are and having that background showing through the flowers and the leaves. Despite my initial misgivings, I was able to achieve something that I actually really like, so I'm happy about that, but I still think it's a pretty weak set overall. Though the delicate colour palette could be appealing to some people, so that's perfectly fine if you really like it. I love this one though. This is more a Becky style palette with those really bright colours. That yellow stands out so much, doesn't it? And that ocean blue with its lovely green colour change makes me feel very happy. That would be such a fun one to paint as an ocean, utilising its name. And you can see I did add some white highlights to this one. And last but not least, we have the alien landscape. I do like how this one came out. It wasn't what I was planning to do at all. I don't even know what I was going to do with this set, but that granulation from the black is epic, and I do like that a lot. Even where I've painted the colours in heavily, you could still see the granulation, so it's quite impressive, and I think these paints are fantastic quality overall. Some are probably better than others, but I think as a full set they are really strong and I do recommend them. But yes, they are pretty expensive, and international viewers are going to have to shop around a bit because it's very hard for me to search for these things. I always get the Australian results. I think AliExpress has them though, so I'll link them if I can find them, and I will link probably the 24 set because I've never seen these 6 sets anywhere else. But if you can find these boxes, they're super cute, I really like them. Or you could be really sensible and buy individual tubes in the colours that you like, then you don't have to fork out for all 24 of them. The Holbein palette is also working out really well. I forgot to show it again in this video, but that yellow is totally from the landscape set and not in the floral set, so that is a lie. Whatever, just collect the whole set. And after all of that, I think I am Holbeined out for the moment, but I may or may not have filmed in the meantime some other videos relating to the Holbein. If I have, I'll add those into the collection, and if I haven't, then you'll be seeing those a bit further down the track. But I hope you've been enjoying these ones. I've had a lot of fun with them, and it's been really fun exploring Holbein's entire watercolour paint range, and now I've got to find somewhere to put them all. Oh joy! I still haven't got anywhere for that palette yet, it's just sitting in the cardboard box it came in. But anyway, those are future Becky worries, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. Don't forget to click the subscribe button, and I'll pop a couple of other Holbein videos that I've just filmed recently so you can watch those too. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you really soon in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!